Okay, so a lot of people are discussing this paper that I'm part of a forum on Facebook, and a lot of people are discussing this paper and how difficult it could possibly be. So I thought it might be a good idea to go through it. Now, my students, I'm going to get this paper printed for you. Okay, but if you're not in school, you can download this from the link below, and the same goes for any other students across the world that use my channel as well. If you look at the link below, you will see a link to, sorry, if you look in the description below, you'll see a link to the video. Okay, so first question. So it says there are many types of printer. Name the printer which best fits the description below. A printer that prints by pressing metal pins against an ink ribbon onto the paper. A printer that sprays tiny droplets of ink directly onto the paper. And a printer that uses toner to transfer the print image onto plain paper. A printer that uses resin to create solid objects. Now, you should have already have, hopefully, I'm hoping that you already might have guessed most of these. Okay, but maybe one or two you're probably not sure about. But it's not what they're asking, it's the way they ask it, as always. Okay, so a printer that prints by pressing tiny metal pins against an ink ribbon onto the paper. Now, if you haven't already guessed, that would be a dot matrix printer. So if I go on Google here and type into Google Images dot matrix printer, okay, you should see this printer here. Now, you may think that these don't exist anymore. Well, they very much do. I've seen them in airports across the world. I think I've even seen some in doctor's surgeries. Now, what these printers actually do is they do have the pins that actually do press against the ribbon right here onto the paper. So the printouts actually look like dots. So as you can see here. So if you look at the quality of the print, you can see that it's very much square, dotted. It doesn't print like today's standards. Okay, so these would not be high quality printouts, but however, they would be very cheap to run, very fast, but incredibly noisy. Now, inside here, this is the ribbon. Okay. Sorry, don't know what that is. There we go. So you can see here, this is the ribbon that it uses. So what would happen is this ribbon would run along until basically it runs out. And this is actually an ink soaked ribbon that the printer uses, okay, to print out. Now, they do actually use some form of pins. Okay, so if I put in here dot matrix printer pins, you can see the pins that it actually presses up against to create the dots that create the object, that create basically the printouts. Okay, so here they are. Here's some examples. Okay, you can see these spring-loaded pins. Okay, lots of tiny little pins. Okay, so the next question right here would be a printer that sprays tiny droplets of inks directly onto the paper. Now, that would be, okay, so you should be thinking in your head types of printers. Dot matrix printer, inkjet printer, laserjet printer, 3D printer. Okay, I can't think of any other printers really except those ones. So, inkjet printers. You may have one of these at home, I don't know. But these are them here, they're very cheap to buy. They would be incredibly expensive to run in organisations such as schools. But you can see they actually do use bottles of ink. Okay, and there's like a sponge or something inside the inkwell, and it sprays out tiny, basically little droplets of ink to actually print onto paper. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this, but if you were to actually take the paper almost straight away from the printer, then sometimes you actually smudge your printout because the ink is still wet. Now, the next question would be a printer that uses toner. Now, the key word here is toner. How many times have you heard this in school? How many times? So, in our classroom, we actually have a laserjet printer. Okay. Now, the laserjet printers are cheap to run because the toner they use is like a carbon powder. So this should be familiar to you. So you can see the different, yes, they're quite big printers. They are made for industrial use. And if we look at the, they do produce very high quality printouts. Okay, and they are cheap to run because the toner will last for months and months and months. So if I type in LaserJet toner, we can see what the toner looks like. Okay, so you're familiar with these cartridges. I think you've seen them. Okay, but if we look for the toner, here we are. You can see it's like a powder. Very good colour, very high quality. Okay, and incredibly cheap to run. Now, if you haven't guessed the last one, the key word is solid object. So that would be a 3D printer. And 3D printers do exactly that. They print in 3D. They actually print actual items. So they're being, they're being used in many places now. They're even being used in the industry, in various industries, such as medicine. They're trying to 3D print transplant organs. Okay, they're of absolute marvel with technology. And you can see these are the reels of resin here, so these are plastic. Okay, so what you would see generally in the shops is actually plastic, but they're actually trying to print in different materials, like they're trying to print houses in some countries. Okay, I think they have printed houses. So they've actually printed 3D printed houses. Okay, so not obviously made of plastic. You can see this is concrete here. Okay, but for your exam, they say resin. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Click on the link below if you haven't already to download the paper.